Everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. Today I have joining me Sam Godbold. Sam is the clinic manager of Hiya Health and is a senior exercise physiologist. So I am really excited about this conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome, Jess. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon.
My pleasure. So, Sam, you are an exercise physiologist. You work a lot with people with a lot of different kinds of injuries. And what made me want to reach out to you about actually being on the podcast is because we were having a really interesting conversation about approaching people, specifically people with disabilities, whether they are permanent disabilities or more injuries that are temporary but need working through and need support. And there's a certain way of communicating in these needs and things like that. So, firstly, I just wanted to ask, how did you get started? Just in general, obviously you probably went to uni and everything, but how did you get started and what made you really lean into and focus on working with people with disability?
We'll give you the very short summary. In high school, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I have always been pretty active. I was in probably year 12 at like the careers day, sort of one of the counselors suggested personal training. I was like, sweet. Didn't get into uni, so went to TAFE, did set three, set four diploma straight out of school. I was like, this is pretty fun. Decided to work as a personal trainer, but I was like, what's next? So like probably a lot of people that study physio or exercise physiology, went to exercise science because I thought I was going to work with elite athletes. Did a year of that. Didn't know what exercise physiology was. One of my friends that was in the personal training course and then exercise science said he's going to transfer to exercise physiology. To be honest, I really kind of blindly followed him. I was like, cool, that sounds fun. Then went through exercise physiology degree. Again, first, second year is pretty generic subjects, like a lot of health degrees. Then with that, at the same time, I was working as a personal trainer, working in sort of semi-professional sport. I got a few different opportunities there, which was awesome through some of the connections at uni and some of the placements that I did. But in some of my later placements, I actually did a placement at the company that I work now, Body
Oh, nice.
Smart, which was formerly Hiya Health. And then I did a placement at Rocky SAC, which is a subacute chronic rehab. So through that experience, I got lots of exposure to lots of different people through sort of chronic disease management, neuro rehab. But essentially, the reason I've probably stuck to exercise physiology is in elite sport, you give so much over a season, over preseason, and then you get these like minuscule improvements, which are awesome. However, you give that sort of same gold standard approach to people with a chronic health condition, with a disability, and the amount that you can have an impact positively on someone's life is huge. The reason that we work in a lot of that disability, we see across the spectrum, lots of different ages, health conditions, injuries, but I really enjoy the clients with a disability because one of the things through NDIS and some of those other funding schemes, you can provide someone a gold standard of care without the financial outlay, which is
Mm.
awesome. And then removing some of those barriers. Because I guess as an exercise physiologist, our goal is to get people moving, but also removing some of the stigma and barriers to exercise. That's probably the main thing that we do. So, yeah, it just gives lots of different opportunities to provide that really, really high level of service to people that maybe otherwise couldn't afford it.
I think that's so obviously it's so good, right? Because you think about athletes and quick question though is were you only seeing the minuscule improvements in athletes because they have such like
A
they're
high
so hard
barrier.
on their bodies, so they're kind
Yeah,
of like undoing it a little bit as a result of,
not so much undoing it. I think it's they're already like really, really high up,
yeah,
and obviously, going from
gotcha,
semi-elite
yeah.
to like elite is a big jump, but it's also you don't really have to get that much
Mm,
faster, fitter, stronger.
that
But
makes
it's a lot of work to get those little minuscule improvements. But
yeah, the little
it is
1%.
rewarding to see. But I
Mm.
just enjoy the other work a little bit more.
And I think there's something in that too, because, we do think of exercise and training and things like that. And in even decades past, obviously, it was often only or seen as only for people who are athletes, and that is obviously needed and obviously important for athletes, but when it can make such a difference in the quality of life,
No.
literally the actual quality of life of how people experience things, um, and can experience their lives. Like, anyone gets just a general injury, you wake up and you apparently slept funny, so your neck's sore, or, like you tweak your back, and even if that's sore for just a little bit, that's noticeable enough to impact the quality of life. And that's just one tiny, in the grand scheme of things, one tiny little thing that makes such a big impact to how we feel in our days. Then
Yeah,
the diff
100%.
like the difference that something that is potentially more disabling, whether it was acquired or born with, that can make such a difference in how someone feels in their body.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think for going back to a sporting example, like
Mm.
someone, let's use soccer as an example, someone that, is maybe in that sub elite category, they're training, 3 to 6 times a week. Their
Yeah.
whole identity is built up around all their friends are in that social circle. Their obviously next path in life is hopefully to move in a professional contract. If they get injured, they're spending all this time, doing their rehab, training alone. It's removing their identity. And then
Yeah.
same thing for someone like with a disability. Example maybe is someone that's had a traumatic injury, say for example an amputee, where they've had their life and then due to external circumstances they've lost their leg, for example, and then they're, say it happened at work, I'm thinking of a specific client, then
Yeah.
they're unable to work. And a lot of, your social identity is built up
Yeah.
in your work colleagues. And then when you remove that, you become isolated. And it's just that snowball effect. And I think it's
Yeah.
how we can use exercise, one, to improve their health condition, improve their strength and balance, cardiovascular function, but it's also giving people back that sense of purpose. And same with an example I had of a client that had quite complex mental health conditions, really fear avoidant about her health, well-being, like
Mm.
from, if you were just to look at her biomechanically, like everything was where it needs to be. She was had the strength, but she was really worried and had some really unhelpful behaviors around like her pain. Essentially all we did was build up some capacity and some strength in her leg. Knee
Yeah.
pain reduced. She then had the confidence to go out, access the community, go catch the bus independently, and that then allows her to engage in the community and get all the other social benefits from it. And probably the thing that I touched on earlier of my biggest learning as an exercise physiologist is removing barriers to exercise rather than making it more difficult. Because as you said, unfortunately, people have some quite unhelpful beliefs
Mhm.
around what exercise is. But I think exercise is just movement and it can look different for everyone. And I think our job as an exercise physiologist, exercise science, personal trainer is finding somewhere, finding out where that person is on the continuum of their health and just giving them something that's right at the time and then slowly moving them up that continuum to make it more difficult.
And it's creating a pathway too. I mean, even for myself, like I grew up playing sports, so movement wasn't foreign. That wasn't the issue. But I remember a whole chunk of my 20s, it never occurred to me to go to the gym. Like that's just, it's like, oh, I'll go to yoga, or I'll go do this, or I'll play sports. Like, but it never occurred to me, and I say gym generally, but like in terms of stability and strengthening, which, in reflection would have been so useful earlier, but it was always from this place of, well, I wouldn't know what to do when I get there. And also, and I'm bringing this up because I know a lot of people have the same hang-ups around exercise and movement as a general, right? And then adding in layers of, like going as a woman going into the gym, or with a disability, or needing having different needs that need to be accommodated. It can be such a barrier to be like, well, I feel uncomfortable in that environment, or I don't know what to do in that environment, or that's for a certain kind of person, or in this case, especially when we're talking about disability, my needs are different, and I either don't know if it's accessible for me or if it's going to be inclusive for me, or if someone's going to be able to help me with that or teach me how to handle that, or if that's even possible. There's so many different layers to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's our clientele here in a nutshell. That's where I guess an exercise physiologist helps. But our
Mhm.
goal always is to empower people and to build confidence. So you don't need to see me forever. It's
Yeah.
we work on your capacity, knowing what you can do. But as you said, a lot of it is not just working on the physical stuff, it's that really acceptance and understanding of what is safe for them to do and what they have the capacity to do and building their confidence as well. And I guess for a lot of people, like my bias is for people to do strength training, and I think it's going to be beneficial for absolutely everyone. But I think
Yep.
unlearning some of those biases as well. It's not everyone needs to go to the gym,
Yeah.
but they should be doing some form of loading, whether
Mm.
it's some body weighted movements and picking some stuff up, picking up their grandkids, carrying stuff. Like I think that's something that people, when they think, oh, I need to be doing exercise, they go really far down the continuum to
Yeah.
picture someone in lycra or a big bodybuilder. And I think it's
Mm.
just removing some of those things. And as I said, our job as exercise physiologists and movement professionals is to reduce barriers to people because there's so many barriers placed, and they'll come in and they'll list 100 reasons why they
Yeah.
can't do something, and it's like
Yeah.
just working with them. And I think that's probably my favorite type of client, that someone will come in and go, I hate the gym, I'm never going to do the gym. And okay, as I said, you don't have to do the gym, but I think we can work on getting you at least closer to.
Yeah. I think that's such a good approach. How do you consciously, when you're communicating with someone who might have different needs, whether it's physically or otherwise, physically, intellectually, emotionally, even,
Mhm.
because I'm sure that plays a role, even though therapist is a clinical therapist is not your role, right? But
Yeah.
like, how do you have something where you consciously have learnt how to approach communicating around certain needs or asking certain questions, or what have you learned, or what's your approach there?
Yeah, I think truthfully, it's a long answer, but to
Great.
keep it super simple, and I can go as long as you like, but I think first step is letting people talk. I know that goes without saying, but
It doesn't though.
it
It
does. It
it doesn't
should.
go without
Yeah.
saying. It's good to say. It's good to remind. Yeah.
No, and I know there's studies out there that I can't quote, but I think it's in physio and potentially EP as well, where, and I think it was from GPs where someone gets cut off within the first 20 to 30 seconds, something ridiculous like that. Jump in
Mhm.
if you know the study. Do you?
Oh, I can never quote studies off the
Yeah.
top of my head. I'm like it's written down. I've written it down somewhere. But no, but
But
this makes sense, like just from a lived experience. Yeah,
yeah,
people get cut off.
and to go on a bit of a tangent, I think when I first started as an exercise physiologist, or I guess as a personal trainer talking to people,
Mm,
my assumptions were that everyone knew why they were here. Everyone knew what I was going to do for them. Everyone knew what my expectations for them were outside of sessions were. And it
mm.
couldn't be further from the truth. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think understanding for any person dealing with anyone, could be a therapist, could be a social worker, could be a support worker, could be a friend and family member, is like really nutting down of where you sit within that person's life and that social structure. Because knowing who else is involved in that person's journey as well, knowing what their understanding of what's going on, what they've been told. Because, for example, I've had it so many times where someone's come for a referral for like a chronic disease management plan, diabetes. They've had it for 5 years plus.
Mm.
Sit down in front and go, "What's your understanding of diabetes?" Can't tell me. Like happens all
Yeah.
the time, and that's just a broad example, but happens all the time. Of no one's actually just taken the time to stop and like listen to people. And I think
Oh, that
allowing
breaks my
people,
heart to consider. Like that seems like
it's
such an
crazy.
obvious thing that should be explained, but
Yeah. And again, like, giving the therapist the benefit of the doubt, potentially they just have said it. But I know GPs, for example, are so time poor. They've got
yeah.
a few minutes, and it shouldn't be me 5 years later explaining what diabetes is to this person that's been living with this condition. And that's happened multiple times. But I think really getting a good understanding of asking questions, letting them talk, what their understanding of why they're there,
Mhm.
what they've been told in the past, and what they're like, not what do they want, but it's like, what are you hoping to achieve out of like meeting me today? Because
Yeah.
as you would know, what's written on the referral and what someone's actual concerns are can be completely misaligned.
It's such a good point of not assuming that people know, like not assuming what people know and not from the perspective, absolutely, and this isn't what I think you're saying anyway, but not from that perspective of treating people like they're stupid or they're dumb or
Yeah.
anything, but just it's like it made me think of world building in a book or a movie or whatever, right? It made me think of how it made me think of the Lord of the Rings actually, because this is a tangent, but it makes
No,
sense.
go for it.
Tolkien, he spends so much time world building because he's not assuming that the reader is going to imagine the exact same thing that he's trying to develop. So it's kind of in reverse, but it's just taking the time to go, what is your world? What is the world that you've created around you or the way you see things? And help me understand what your world is so that I can then
Help.
match
Yeah.
that or approach your needs based on my understanding of how you see things or what you understand.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what healthcare should be, right? It should be a shared decision making model. It shouldn't
Mm,
be me saying, you do this, and if you don't do this, you failed. But it's
yeah.
like really understanding and taking people on the journey together. And I think that's where we can be really successful. My own journey as an exercise physiologist, I use this all the time as an example for new grads coming on and people I'm doing mentoring with. It's like I used to approach it of I want to prescribe this person resistance training program. I'm going to smash through the subjective and the objective just so I can get you out of here with something because I thought that was the most valuable part of
Yeah.
the session. But the actual most valuable part is taking the time to stop, as we said, understanding what their world is. And then that allows me to like really navigate what's going to be the best for that person. Because a lot of the time it's education and
Mm,
it's giving people the freedom with movement and not being locked down to like this is the program and you have to do this program for the rest of your life. It's like upskilling people on how to move their body, what's safe, and within a range as well. So, for example, like the people that we deal with, really complex chronic health conditions, disability, they're going to move completely different to someone that's able-bodied, and that's okay. And with, for example, form, like if you were to look at some of my clients' form, for example, on a conventional lift like a deadlift,
mm,
you might go, oh, that doesn't look like textbook perfect. But one, we've slowly built that up so it is safe and they're able to tolerate that, but they just can't move their body the same way like you or
yeah.
I can. And I think that's kind of when you said there's lots of different people that have come through, different abilities, different psychosocial things going on. It's just really, I don't think it's a secret. It's just allowing people to talk. But there's also, I guess, a skill as a therapist to not just let them talk for half an hour and not do anything. It's
Yeah.
like just really trying to ask some of those leading questions as well and like really actively listening to the way their tonality, like when they say, for example, they might have, said something about their past experience at the gym, I mean, quite hesitant. It's like, oh, let's delve into that a
Yeah.
little bit more. But no, I don't think there's one sweeping way that I've learned. I think it's just listening, taking an
Mm,
understanding. But I think as well, like people with a disability, they just want to do the things that people their age want to do, right? And
yeah.
I've got multiple clients. I'm thinking of two brothers at the moment. One's 22 and one's 20. They both have complex disability, non-verbal, but I just treat them like a young adult. Like we
Yeah.
we talk
They
smack
are.
together. We like do a little bit of like like not a rough play, but we just like. And I think that's probably one like people just want to fit in. They don't want to
Mm,
be talked down to. They don't want like yes, they need adjustments. They don't want a million adjustments, and they don't want to be the center of attention all the time,
mm.
right? So I think it's all of those things combined.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, like you said, it it almost goes under said, but it is just the listening. It's just the what's important to you right now, because that can change, I imagine, over the course of your
100%.
sessions together too. Like it might have been a big deal for them to just show up, or it might have been something that they're just aching to do more and more of. So like they're just like, I'm here, I need to be here, but I want to be here. Like,
Yeah.
so like whatever their motivation for showing up is, whether they've kind of been referred to and encouraged heavily in order to do it, or whether they are like, this is what I
Amazing.
need.
Yeah, and no, that is so important as well. Understanding how they came to you, like whether they went online and booked in themselves privately, like they're obviously pretty motivated, they've sought that out.
Yeah.
They've got a doctor's referral, ask them, do you know why you're here? Like some people go, oh, yeah, I went to my doctor, this is the problem, I want this fixed. Or the doctor kind of just mentioned it. Or we've had ones where, oh, the daughter or the son or the son-in-law books in their like parent or, father or
Yeah.
mother-in-law. And
That's
it's like,
scary.
oh, and this common, which is good, but it's like really qualifying them of like how where they are in their journey as well. And I think
Mhm.
with disability or probably chronic disease more so, like using that diabetes example, someone with high blood pressure, it's like, why today? Like you've had diabetes for 5 years. How come you
Yeah.
didn't come and see me last week or 2 weeks ago? And then letting them just talk because they'll tell you all the information that you want to know. And I
Yeah.
think really pinning down, probably more so in that chronic disease population. It's like their why. I know that gets said all the
But
times.
it
But like,
makes so much sense. It's like,
yeah,
why though? Like, it could just be, I just had, like, when you said why today, I just had like a bunch of things that go through my head of like why I might do something immediately or put it off. And it's not necessarily to procrastinate. It's like, well, I was busy.
yeah,
Like, I didn't have capacity. It wasn't at the top of my list to look at. And then suddenly it was. And I'm like, cool, I'll look at that now. Or,
yeah. No, and I think that busy one as well. It's like
mm,
talking to people. People use busy more than any other excuse or reason that they're not doing more.
yeah.
And I think it's just really flipping the switch on what are your priorities. And
Mm,
then if someone does have a chronic disease, like diabetes is a really good example for that. And depending on the person, like you really want to gently maybe lead them down. But some of the people, they're like older or they've just had a child or they've just had grandchildren and they go, well, I want to be, around for my grandchild. It's like, well, I've had pretty hard conversations and initials with people. It's like, if you don't do this, you're
mm,
like, you can go through diabetes. Diabetes is a horrible thing.
mm.
Uncontrolled diabetes, as you know, leads to so many adverse outcomes.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's absolutely everybody, but some people you can go pretty blunt and be like, you need to do something about this now, or
Yeah.
these are the things that are going to happen.
Mm. And I think it's also, there's a communication element there of, and this is like anything, I have it in well-being too, where it's sometimes, and me too for other things, but sometimes we don't know. We're trying to kind of triage our time and our energy because everyone's lives are so busy and so
Yeah.
full and sometimes so overwhelming and we don't always know if making that change is going to give us the return on investment. Like if spending that little extra energy to, in this case, book an appointment, go for an appointment, that little extra time and energy that it does take can sometimes feel like a massive amount of time and energy, even if it's not. But we want to know that it's going to actually be worth that extra effort that it can feel like to take that step.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it just comes down to you could answer that, I think, a lot of different ways. I think
Mm.
a simple way is like that value proposition, right? So you could use any example of any purchase that you want. You feel like if your value that you receive for the product outweighs the amount of dollars that you spend or time and effort, you feel like you got a good deal. But when it goes the other way, you're like, oh, I've wasted my time, I wasted my money, etc.,
Mm.
etc. And I think for some, you could use a lot of different therapies for this, right? Like you come and see me once, you're not going to improve really anything.
Yeah.
It's about us developing the skills, tools, so you can self manage, but you can make this a routine because you're not going to see, exercise benefits for 6, 12 weeks. And that's the reality. But
Yeah.
obviously, along the way, you're encouraging them with small wins, little things like that. And a lot of the wins are around consistency, building habits. But I think that's where we come in, and it's like we really almost, I'll use the word sell, like we're selling exercise and we're selling health. We've got to be
Mm.
good at really passing on the message of why they should be doing it, because it's not a transaction. They pay the money, they see me, they get an outcome. Like that never happens. It's
Yeah.
they've got to
Not the
trust what I'm
reality of
saying.
it.
Yeah, they've got to trust what I'm saying, so they stay consistent to
Mm.
movement, the exercises that I provide them, coming to see me, so they actually get the benefit. And I think that's where the understanding of why they're here, who referred them, what
Yeah.
their biggest goal from that session is. And I think that's where I might have the best ambitions for this client, but if they don't feel like they've left the session with what they wanted to achieve from that session,
Yeah.
they're going to feel like they wasted their time. And I think that comes back to what we were talking about at the start. It's also setting expectations with the client, and they've got to be realistic expectations. If they go, I want to see you and lose 10 kilos, like that's not going to happen today. But
Yeah.
then we,
We
break
can
it
set
down.
up a plan for that.
It's like more so, I think for us as well, when I was talking about that selling piece, it's like, this is what we're going to achieve today. We're going to have a chat. We're going to get to understand where you're at. And then planting the seed of, this is what the next session is going to look like. This is what we're going to do. And this is going to
Mhm.
lead to X, Y, and Z. And I think it's that, like setting the seed for them to
Yeah.
build good habits.
And I think that that also does help address the risk, I guess is the word, the risk of feeling like they've failed if they put a lot of expectations on themselves. And I say they as in
Mm.
anyone, like if someone puts a lot of expectations on themselves or you or the session or their body, um, to perform or to have a certain outcome at the end of one session or very, very quickly, I think having that communication in terms of the plan and the way you've talked about it of at the beginning of checking in and what are you wanting out of today's session, but also at the end going, okay, this is where we came from. That's great. Here's the progress, but this is what we learnt and what we'll do for next time. And taking them through that clarity of there is a plan happening. We're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall
Yeah.
and seeing what sticks. Like that can help. And I say this because I know that this is how I respond too. Like that can help reduce that feeling of, well, I failed or I wasted my time or this isn't for me, like, or this isn't going to work for me of, well, I can see the plan and I have input and I have a say, like it involves me, so I have a say.
No, for sure. And I think that's a big part as well of, I think my learning as well as an exercise physiologist dealing with people,
Mm,
if you can take on so much burden of this client's goals, but at the end of the day, they're
yeah.
not my goals, they're the client's goals. And I think the expectation setting is so, so important. But then reframing the expectations, as you said, to make it realistic for the client. But
Mm,
then, as you said, it does have to be that shared decision. So also giving the client a realistic expectation of what their requirements are to achieve their goal.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. It's like, okay, you can have this really great goal, but I can't
Here's
do it
what it
for you.
takes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
This is what we can do. And
yeah,
then
if you're
kind
up for
of,
that, great, let's go. But just so you know, the reality. Yeah.
yeah, no. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's giving them ownership over their goals as well. And I
Mm.
think I didn't uh, think of this at all, but there's, I think it's Peter O'Sullivan, a very good researcher, physiotherapist. He has the O'Sullivan question. It's like, what is your understanding of today, and how would you explain it to a family member?
Ooh,
So
a
asking
great
that
like
question,
synthesizing
yeah,
question.
synthesizing. So with that, depending on the person, if it's
Mm.
someone that's come with a support worker, how would you explain it to your support worker? Or,
Yeah.
a family member, how would you explain it to a family member? I love doing it with kids as well. because
Mm.
taking them on that journey, it's like, what do you want? Because obviously communication style is going to be so different.
Yeah.
Children or someone with a disability, someone that's got, you know, a learning impairment, intellectual disability, like you can use a modification of that question, but
Mm.
then ask them at the end, get them explain it to you, and then put them under a bit of pressure. Not always, but go, all
Yeah.
right, like your husband's in the waiting room, let's bring him in or let's go out there. Like, what was your takeaway from today? Like, what's your understanding of why you came, what the expectations are for you, and what's the plan moving forward? Because that also then gets them to start thinking about it. And
It's
then they've got
confidence building.
confidence building, and then they've got a bit of an accountability partner as well, because that's
Mm.
probably one of the biggest things as well, as you were talking about before when we were chatting, like with your own studies. It's like having
Mm.
some level of accountability and a good support structure is so beneficial, because if it's just yourself or just you and me, like it's hard for them to stay, you know,
Yeah.
on track. But if they've got someone at home or someone in their ear, like it's a hell of a
Mm.
lot easier.
Yeah, and especially when you consider support workers too, like them knowing and them understanding what's going on, even if it's not their direct role, but them being able to sort of literally support because they understand it and comprehend it too. That,
100%. It
yeah.
just goes back to what we were saying before. It's like understanding my role as an exercise physiologist is as an exercise physiologist. But
Mm.
for me to do a really, really good job, it's for me to understand how this is going to fit into the person's life and actually be realistic with that.
Yeah.
Like it might not be realistic for them to do something absolutely every single day. They might only have funding for support workers twice a week, but like what can they do outside of that? And I think that's probably the most important thing, is just making it really, really realistic for people.
Yeah, it's progress over perfection.
100%.
Mm. And
100%.
sometimes, especially if people get caught up on like the internet of things where it's like, well, you gotta be consistent and and perfect and all of like that pressure that can be found in different environments. It's sometimes we miss the actual benefit of just progress.
Well, 100%. Yeah. Just showing up. I think,
Yeah.
like, I've got one client that I absolutely adore. I adore all my clients, but she's in her late 60s, a lot of physical impairments, a lot of psychosocial stuff going on. She has every single reason to, like, not come, like,
Yeah.
every single reason under the sun. I think in the last sort of 4 or 5 years that I've seen her, other than her being away or going on holidays, I think she's cancelled maybe 2 appointments.
Wow.
Even if she's like, obviously, if she's sick, I tell her don't come.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, if she's not feeling 100% from a mental health space
Mm.
and she's able to come in, we just have a bit of a, as we say, a grinder session. We just like talk or we just go through something. But that routine, like she's made insane growth. And I think it just shows that those little things, like as you said, progress over perfection is so
Yeah.
important.
So, to sort of wrap it up, what do you, over the course of your career, obviously, and learning a lot about different lived experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because it is such a learning thing, and as one of my peers always points out, that disability is something that we can either be born with, but it's one of those ones that can happen to any of us as well. So there is a lot to learn, but what do you feel like you've learned about yourself or the world, and you can be however narrow or broad you want to be.
Yeah, I'm still learning and still learning a
Yeah,
lot about
oh,
myself
we
and
all
everyone.
are. Yeah.
But no, I think gratitude does come back to it. I think really, like in the area that I'm at, Caboolture, working with lots of complex needs, people have, been dealt a pretty rough hand, whether it's through a disability or other means.
Mm.
But just understanding that for my own self, like being grateful for what I have, I think we can easily, you know, blow out of proportion some of our minor inconveniences.
Yeah.
But in the whole scheme of the world, I think it's pretty insignificant. Um, whilst some of the systems that we have aren't perfect, they're much better than a lot of the places in the world. But in saying that, I think for the clients that I work with and the people that I see here, it's just less is more often as well. I think with the clients that I see, as I said, my I think philosophy over this time that I've been an exercise physiologist is just been removing barriers. I know I've said that like 3 or 4 times, but I think it's so important.
Worth repeating. It's yeah.
Removing barriers for people because they were already going to come with a long list of barriers, so many reasons that they can't do something. But I think it's just empowering people to find those little wins and
Mm,
realizing that it doesn't have to be a 1 hour gym session. It can be 5 minutes here, it can be 5 minutes there. And I think for a lot of people, they've just never been told that. They think,
yeah.
if they're not doing a big chunk of something or perfecting at something, there's no point in doing it.
Mm,
And a lot of our clients, they have, complex health needs or movement difficulties, and it's just making small adjustments for people. And
yeah.
then they can, but I think as well, just not working in isolation. I think, as we said, there's so many other people involved often in a client's journey. Like even here, we have OTs, physios, dietitians, exercise physiologists as well.
Mm,
We have the ability to help people in lots of different ways, but even outside of the clinic, there's all our clients will see someone else, and I think it's just, as I said, understanding where we fit in the client's journey is so
yeah.
important.
I love that. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out or get in contact with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, no, my probably best one is just LinkedIn. It's just my
Perfect.
name, so Sam Godbold. That's probably the main one I use.
Easy. That's so easy. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat and to share and I think there were a few things that you said where I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's what it comes down to. So I know that there's a lot of value in even just having these conversations and listening to these conversations. So thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Jess. Much appreciated.